Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scary Stories We Tell. I am your host, Christachio, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, or one of the hosts of this show, your friend and mine, Emma.
Hello, I'm one of the hosts of the show.
I mean, more often than not, if you're listening to this show, you're one of the hosts of the show. But speaking of more often than not, when you're listening to the show, they're hosting this show with me. If you were to listen to the Bollywood Cinema Club and you were a fan of Indian action cinema, you might have heard my good friend Dustin, who's joining us on this episode, all the way over there. But he was on an episode of this show a long time ago. I think we're talking like July of 2021. Like a long time ago, right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So we were talking spooky, weird stuff then. We're talking spooky, strange shit on the internet, otherwise known as SurrealTube, which is an idea that Emma came up with, and we covered a whole Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared season 1 and a whole Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared season 2. So if you're here now listening to this and you don't know what this is going to be, well, don't worry about it, because this is the first episode we're doing on Salad Fingers, so you don't need to know about anything else. All you need to know is this is the starting place for yet another venture out into the strange depths of, well, this is on YouTube, and this started on YouTube, right?
Actually, it started on Newgrounds.
Boy, Dustin, do you remember Newgrounds?
I do.
Okay, so the three of us are
when
all...
that happened.
Okay, so the three of us are all varying ages, but more or less within 10, 12 years of one another. So I'm curious, before we talk Salad Fingers, Dustin, what was your entry point to Newgrounds?
Oh, geez. It was more something that we would just stumble upon when I first came about it, like just peruse it. Like I think there was somebody in the class above me in high school that told me about it. And so I went on internet probably just shortly after dial-up stopped and started just looking around Newgrounds. I wouldn't say there's one thing.
Do you guys, so actually, you know what, Emma, I'll ask you, did you have a specific entry point to Newgrounds?
If I did, I don't remember it. I was definitely around at like I was young, but I was around for that peak time when people just like found out about like a couple of interesting websites and those circulated. Like, I mean, for me, it started with like Webkins and Neopets, and then eventually, obviously like YouTube got into the mix. And then I don't know if you guys remember Albino Black Sheep. That was like a couple of like flash games and like weird videos, which I think was basically a watered down version of Newgrounds. And then like, so I think probably something from there, or trying to search something from there, probably at some point brought me to Newgrounds. But I was young. Most of the Newgrounds stuff that I've seen, I saw as it being re-uploaded to YouTube.
Okay. So my entry point to Newgrounds was Assassin, which was where it was weird. There was like a subset of flash games. And again, I think they got rid of them because we're all sitting here looking at Newgrounds as I kind of scroll around.
Well, isn't like Flash Dead or something?
Well, no, it was more like it was a series of, it was a style of game where you could kill a celebrity or Osama bin Laden or Saddam Hussein. There was the one that sticks out to me was Bear in the Big Blue House. And it was like,
I'm sorry, that's a jump.
Yeah. So it was like murdering but they were like murderous themselves.
You know,
right.
All horrible people, the worst people, just Osama bin Laden, Bear in the Big Blue House.
Didn't say it was like bad people. It was just like, it was
the way you said it.
It was celebrities. So like, again, like, I don't know how else to explain it. It was something that's pretty transgressive if you think about it now. And there's like Emma, just give a
I'm
sign.
sorry. The
jump in logic was too much. But it was one of those things where like it would definitely not exist now. And like, I bet we could look Bear in the Big Blue House, Assassin, Newgrounds. I wonder if it's a thing. I think if we were to see this, okay, so we can actually see this and you guys can see what I'm talking about. Like, this is pretty, I would say, transgressive in a way that like I don't think you can be anymore. So this is a game and someone's going to play it. And I'm getting to introduce you guys to something that's super fucking insane.
What the fuck am I looking at?
So what we're watching is literally like them talking about like the characters from Big Blue House, but they're like the perverted versions of them. So there's like it's like, again, like it's
Piss and poop homosexual otters.
Titty the mouse, and it's really offensive in a way that's like things can't be.
That was the humor of the time,
right? It's pretty transgressive. I mean, they use the R word here, so again, right? Like it's super weird, and so here is what it is.
Holy crap!
Oh, this is so early 2000s,
right? But like this was my specific entry point to Newgrounds.
Fascinating.
So when you say to me, like, this was a Newgrounds thing, this is exactly what I'm expecting. Like this kind of strange, transgressive piece of media that's you literally killing the bear in the big blue house.
I mean, yeah, I think this is pretty peak early Newgrounds. It's funny. You reminded me, there were a couple of Flash games that I did play on Newgrounds. Like I definitely played like a lot of point and click, like escape room games. And I played like one rhythm game, I think, maybe. Yeah. It's interesting how watching that brought back some memories. Just like seeing the style of that, like dug up some old stuff for me.
But that's when you say this was on Newgrounds, that's kind of my internal like brain. That's where it goes. Cause like Newgrounds, that's like a very specific entry point for Newgrounds. Assassin, where you could kill people, like just random celebrities and like people of pop culture fame. Like nobody, like now in our day and age, people would be up in fucking arms about that. Like you would get canceled before it even existed.
I think it was released for the correct audience at the time.
Right.
And I think it can live in the past comfortably.
I agree. Like, I don't think anybody would even make that that kind of content. Just, I don't think anybody's okay making a content of like.
There are still like 15-year-olds making content similar to this. It's just, for the most part, it stays on places like, and people are still making content for Newgrounds. And there's like, this unspoken rule that Newgrounds is kind of a fucked up place. I think like probably less so now than back then, but right. I feel like there still is like
those Assassin's games aren't
kind of an anything
anymore.
Goes. Almost like an anything goes.
Do you remember and I had to look it up because I couldn't quite remember the name. It was just off the tip of my tongue. But Elian Gonzalez, do you remember this?
Yeah, the kid getting taken out of his family's house, right?
Yeah, there was a flash clip made of Elian Gonzalez, and it was like a Budweiser "What's Up" video. Like, what's up? Yeah, and I remember it being on Newgrounds, and I just looked it up, and it's there.
So there you go. Like
I said, there's kind of this unspoken rule. Most people on Newgrounds, as far as I can tell, don't really out who they are. And nobody like goes out of their way to like hunt them down. If you want this type of content, you kind of have to be searching for this type of content.
It's like YTMND, right? Like,
sure, whatever that is.
Wait, do you really not know what YTMND is?
Should I?
Dustin, do you know what YTMND is?
You're saying YTNMD?
YTMND.
I haven't heard it.
So you guys can see my screen. So YTMND is a site where you make a website hosted by them, and it's often just like a clip or a like dramatic reading. So it gets its name from this clip from a Sean Connery movie, and no, I'm not kidding.
You're the man now, dog. You're the man now, dog. You're the man now, dog. You're the man now, dog.
That's all that is. That's all that is. That's all that is.
Wow.
It's just that. But here is what I remember it for is the bat. Just there's no way to describe this. If you know, you know, as they would say. So it's not making fun of anyone or anything. That is that's a Spanish language song that for whatever reason, the guy is making that noise during the song, but they put it over that Batman from 67. Yeah, Dustin. Yeah. Like, see, like Emma, not really, but with you, Dustin, it's resonating. So like, I'll show you
the sound clip before.
Right. Okay. So that's where it comes from. YTMND.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So this is the last one, and Dustin will appreciate this one, but this is, again, this smacks of late 90s, early 2000s, and you'll see why. What that conjures up literally like the early like 2000s, right? Like that kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger on the soundboards, fucking E-Bombs World. We didn't talk about E-Bombs World,
Oh,
but
man,
E-Bombs
E-Bombs
World's in the
World.
same world of Newgrounds, right? Like
Yeah.
subversive, transgressive content being hosted somewhere, oftentimes not their original content. Because I remember on E-Bombs World, we used to watch the parody of Die Hard from the Ben Stiller show on E-Bombs World, which was a TV show episode snippet that was being hosted there. So it's like funny that everything ends up being just on YouTube. Because like, again, like you said, Newgrounds is where Salad Fingers comes from. And I think just judging by the screen image that we're sitting here looking at, the quality, there is some of that is going to be reflective in the quality.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the quality, I think, does jump significantly as we get to some of the newer episodes. Some of the newer episodes came out more recently. It wasn't like all of them were released at the same time. There were some space in between. So you will see a slight jump in quality. But the reason why I wanted to show you this one specifically, similar to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, how many views does that first episode have there?
43 million, and it's been on YouTube for 15 years. And again, like you mentioned, it didn't start here. So that in and of itself, quite impressive, because who knows the amount of views it had over at Newgrounds.
Oh my God, definitely. And
Right.
you have to add those up because those are two very different audiences. But I think it's really important to note that for me, my childhood growing up with the internet, when, you were hanging out with friends and you were bored, you'd find like weird shit in your spare time on YouTube, and then you'd show it to your friends. And that was how like most hangouts went. If you had nothing better to do, you were on YouTube and you were sharing stupid videos with your friends. And a lot of them were for shock factor at the time. Like this type of media, this very surreal, weird, make you question what the fuck am I watching? Like that type of media was huge. And I mean, like we've talked about like Charlie the Unicorn, which I think like really emphasizes it in a way that I think like a lot of people can relate to. I would say Salad Fingers is a little bit less iconic than, Charlie the Unicorn. I think also just aesthetic wise, Charlie the Unicorn reached a larger audience, because Salad Fingers definitely, if you're not looking at it because it's pretty, that's for sure.
Right. Which is why I kind of wanted to set the stage here for any of our listeners who maybe don't know about Newgrounds, or kind of the expectation of what we're going to be watching. Because again, comparatively to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, even Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared's roughest is still 10 million light years better than I assume this is ever going to get, because the mediums, while they are different, are like the expectations are also different.
I think it's also important to note that this was created by one person, David Firth, I believe, whereas Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared was at least two people, if not a team, like a production team as well. So I'm pretty sure David voices all the characters. As far as I can remember, at least for the first episode, he's the voice. So he created it, he drew it, he wrote the story, and he voiced the character. So this is basically a one-man show. And that's also really indicative of Newgrounds.
Right.
So so this came out in 2005.
That's insane. Dustin, what were you doing in?
Oh, I was out of high school. I was still in college.
I was 15. I was in high school.
Was 7 or 8.
That's... So did you see this in 2005 then?
No, I think I came across it when I was probably like 11. That was when I had more control over my internet experience.
That's fair.
At the time, I was too busy learning how to play Yankee Doodle on the piano.
So wholesome all the time.
It looks familiar to me, but if I did watch it, it was like in passing. I don't think I ever sat down and
That's because I wanted to ask you.
Salad Fingers.
Because like, what is kind of your entry point into these kinds of things? I mean, I know that, we watched a little Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, because I was, not that I was worried, but if you watch that and you were like, I'm out, like, I'd be like, okay, I get it. Like, I get it. Like, I get it. It's not for everybody, and it's not supposed to be, like, and that's okay. Like, like you're making something that's inherently very much something that you like, and you hope that it finds an audience once you've released it. But like something like Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is made for the people who make. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's also important to note that Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is like, yeah, like it's weird, but like it's one, the premise is fascinating. Two, it's like the production quality, all of the effort that's gone into like the physical making of it, I think is enough to get people enticed and like into watching it. Obviously the songs that are very well produced. This is just weird. And there's no downtime of that. It is always weird. So like Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is like interspersed with like, sure, there are like creepy undertones, but there are a good stretches of time where it's just like, okay, yeah, this is like a safe point where I'm not currently feeling uncomfortable. I would say Salad Fingers is pretty much uncomfortable the whole way through every single episode. So buckle up for that specifically.
All right.
So on that note, let us take a look at the first episode of Salad Fingers. And I don't think we would be really doing ourselves a service if we didn't watch it on Newgrounds.
Oh my God. Oh, I really hope that this doesn't just like nerf the quality for us.
I hope not, but we'll see. So we're going to be watching the first episode of Salad Fingers that was released in 2004. This came out July 1st of 2004. At 9:25 in the morning Eastern.
Wow, woke up early.
3 million views on Newgrounds, which is pretty good.
Which is pretty good for Newgrounds.
Pretty good for Newgrounds. So here we go.
All right.
We'll pause it if we need to, but here we go. We're going to be taking a look at first episode of Salad.
Name Chris, I think you forgot to react. You need a sec?
That is like the term aggressively off-putting comes to mind.
Oh yeah, I told you it's a jump in tone.
Oh, Dustin, I'm gonna turn the floor over to you first, since you're the newbie here on the SurrealTube couch. What did you think of that?
What?
Well, having done Flash animation back in the day. I was taken back to those, like just watching the weird, like twitchiness of the mouth, like that's not. I mean, that takes time to create, but it's also just uncomfortable to watch, and the audio. There's nothing fancy about it, but it's just like
it's effective.
They're rubbing on the microphone, and yeah, it makes you not want to listen to it. But yeah, makes you want to listen to it. And rubbing on rusty anything. Ugh.
Yeah.
And the baby. The shriek.
Is this like a door opening or closing? Like, is that what was going on? Like
audio distortion? I have no idea.
The noises in this are just so awful.
Oh, yeah. Headphones and everything.
Well, and the thing that cracks me up is, I mean, you put it pretty aptly, Dustin, like that style of animation that like 1 year later, like the I don't know, like the what the fuck, not that, like that's the SpongeBob thing, the what you guys know what I'm talking about, like the
text on the screen,
the world was destroyed. It's like that other Flash YouTube video that was pretty popular where it's like the world, like we destroyed the world or some shit. I'm floundering. It's another one of these kinds of things where it's like a like an animated MS Paint video.
Oh yeah.
But it's like a funny one, and it's like I didn't like that for the same reason. This is
the ultimate showdown of Ultimate Destiny.
That's what it is.
I'm glad I got it because that's another really iconic one of the time. I don't know if that's actually the title.
Emma Mantell of Iconic Media says it's iconic. The CE fucking O of Iconic Media, because Emma said earlier this evening before you joined us that Salad Fingers is iconic media.
It's iconic internet media.
And so I said, well, then you need to name a company called Iconic Media. And
it'll go over really well with Gen Z.
I mean, which I mean, as they say, they're here for it. So I will say I will say this. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. I think the first episode or two had this problem, and I don't know how many episodes of this are going to have this problem. This feels very much of a time and of a place.
Yeah.
In a way that, like, at that time in that place, I'm not sure. I know for a fact this wasn't my thing. I don't know why. And this is going to sound terrible, but like I always associated this with like kids that I always found not weird, because I was a weird kid. It was like kids that were just kept not kept to themselves, because again, that's not the case. It was just when someone would say this to me, the person suggesting it, I was often like, okay. Like I didn't trust their opinion on things is probably the way of putting it. Me and them didn't have a lot of pop culture overlap. And when they said something like this, I was like, I'm probably not gonna like.
Yeah, you were a weird kid, but they were the weird kids.
Yeah, I get, but I don't even want to say that, because like the stuff that I was into and am still into is weird in a different direction. Like this is weird, but I mean, Dustin, you've seen Freaked. Like that's pretty weird in a different kind of way. It's like a funny, weird movie that has a lot of esoteric jokes and deep pop culture references and weird for weird sake jokes. And it's in a lot of ways, like it reminds me of this, where you're just trying to be weird. Like, why is his name Salad Fingers? What the fuck does that mean? Like you said, Dustin,
his fingers look like salad.
What does that mean? It's fucking weird, but it's weird for weird sake. Like you said, Dustin, like touching rusty things. That's off-putting and weird in a very relatable way that everybody automatically understands what that means. The commonality here is I appreciate the commonality of the experience that he's getting at that makes everybody uncomfortable.
What I want to know, and I want your opinion on this, and I guess we'll sort of kind of figure this out as we continue, because the series does have an overarching story, but it makes me wonder if this first episode, when David was creating this episode, did he have an idea for that story? Or was he just creating this for the sake of creating something weird, and then it blew up, and then he continued it just like Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared? Or did he already have, because like you'll see, like the there is lore as we continue forward.
I expected as much.
This is a great intro to set the tone, but it makes me wonder, was that the intention? To set the tone for what he was planning on making, or was this supposed to be just like a one-off, I'm gonna fuck around with Flash and make something weird?
I mean, it's weird.
Like a chicken or the egg thing.
Yeah, I guess it depends on when the second episode came out.
Let me put it this way. The three of us are all creative types. I would wager David Firth is a creative type. I would wager he probably had at least an inkling of an idea where he was probably going. I mean, again, I think to your point, but do you go in a certain direction because those things are more successful than others, though, and that affects what you're doing, right? So, again, like chicken or like you said, Dustin, chicken or the egg. And again, I'm of the mindset that these kinds of people, ourselves included, know what they want, know what they're trying to get at, and are not going to compromise unless they have to. So,
if I asked you, what does the first episode of Salad Fingers mean? What would you respond with?
Dustin, I want to hear you first.
Well,
if you can.
Let's just accept the fact that this is a weird dude that lives in a weird place that has weird fingers. Yeah. He's got some weird obsession with rusty things. Mm-hmm. I think I don't know. It's hard to even put a beat on it.
What about you, Chris?
I think it's just kind of a weird, like mentally troubled universe.
It definitely comes off that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can literally only add to what Dustin said about as much as there seems to be something that draws him to Rust, and maybe there's an explanation as to why that is, and maybe we'll understand what it means to have salad fingers. And the other question that I have is this a man in a green suit whose eyes are sticking out? Or is that just a fucking strange design choice? Because here's the thing we didn't talk about. You mentioned the mouth moving, Dustin, but the way he moves is really off-putting. In a way that you can only be doing it because it's a Flash, MS Paint Flash animation type.
You know what's interesting? Salad can rust. Have you ever heard the term rusty salad?
No, not once.
So if you cut salad with a metal knife, it'll cause the edges of the salad to rust.
Oxidize, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So that is a term, to have your salad rust. So the fact that he's salad fingers and he likes rusty things, that's interesting.
Well, and if you go buy a head of lettuce from the store, the root part is brown, right? That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I asked you guys to make predictions for where you think this is headed, Which, to be fair, it has been a really long time since I've watched all of this. I only remember some of the beats, which is, I try not to rewatch. If we're gonna, like, if I'm showing this to somebody, I like re-experiencing it, alongside. So I didn't rewatch it. So I don't really remember where it goes. I only remember some of it. If I asked you guys to make any prediction at all for where you think this is headed, place your bets.
Well, he wants rusty things, maybe specifically spoons.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like this desolate world. Is he going to stumble upon like a department store and find a bunch of rusty spoons and just be in heaven?
Oh, that would be awesome.
Does the baby make a callback?
The corn baby.
It does kind of look like corn.
It looks like corn.
Interesting.
It's what this was so esoteric. I'm not even sure that I have. I would assume that he encounters more people. I'd be curious if he's the only one of his kind, or if there are more of these. And again, I go back to what I said: is this like this? If this is his skin, then he looks horrifying. If it's him in a suit, it's not much better. But I'm curious if he's of his own, or if there are others like him. Well,
or the ultimate storyline cop out wakes up from a dream,
and he is part of the "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" universe.
Yeah,
it all relates back.
He was a puppet all along.
Right. He's one of the teachers, and this is his backstory.
Oh, God. What would he be teaching? What is he a teacher of?
Fucking nightmare. That's... So is the next episode this one?
Let me double check for you. Next episode actually is titled Friends.
Yeah, so I had opened it.
Come on, Newgrounds. Don't you have the series in order?
Yeah, right. What's up with you guys? This is hard to get to. Well, we watched the first one.
On Newgrounds.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we watched the first one on Newgrounds. We can watch
If I may recommend, I will say that when you make the YouTube video full screen, it does tend to lag a little bit. Put it in theater mode.
Okay.
I don't think this needs to be full screen.
Okay. I mean, again, like, as you guys tell me what it needs to look like to make it better for you. So
yeah, I would just put it in theater mode.
Is that this
that one? Yeah.
Okay. So, Jesus Christ, stay put. So, Emma, is there anything you want to tell us we need to know before we watch the second episode of Salad Fingers titled Friends?
Only thing I want to tell you is that you have yet to put it in theater mode.
Okay. Well, other than that, which I will do, I'm not one of those teachers that forgets. Okay, that leaves the mouse on the screen. Did I not hit the right thing? I thought it was I.
No, that. There you go.
What is
okay?
Okay.
I have nothing. I don't remember. Like I said, I only remember a good couple of beats. Just expect more of the same, but progression.
Okay, fair enough. So here we go. Second episode of Salad Fingers titled Friends. This was posted on YouTube 14 years ago and has 24 million views. Nothing to say in the description other than Salad Fingers has a few friends over. So we'll leave it at that and we'll see where it goes.
Oh.
What the actual fuck?
Oh, this is bringing back so many memories of showing horrible things to my friends in middle school.
What? I'm not even fucking sure anymore.
Yeah.
It's like really aggressively off-putting. Like,
oh, definitely. Would you call it surreal?
I would call it a fucking nightmare is what I would call it.
Hubert Cumberdale. Smells of soot and poo.
What?
That's what I learned.
Yeah.
What, Dustin, what is your immediate?
Well, I don't know. They ramped up.
Mm-hmm.
The dial turned up a bit from the last one. He's definitely somebody you don't want to go in Salad Fingers' house. That's why he's got finger puppet friends. I didn't see a fish in the oven.
I think I saw something in the oven.
Okay.
There was like a yellowish lump.
Okay.
Oh, that's what was left in the oven.
The voice. I mean, that's the thing that echoes through both episodes so far is that just the voice is something I don't want to listen to.
Well, good news. That's consistent.
Oh, great. Thanks. I was really hoping that was going to be your answer.
Sounds like David knew the secret sauce of what he was making.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. No, like you know where this idea fucking came from? Mm-hmm. This came from him sitting one day just like doing this voice and was like, what does this character look like? Because
Yeah.
as someone who does a lot of voices, some of them, like, I could rattle them off and they're not like a specific like imitation thing. Like, I have often thought, like, what would the character that this voice goes to like look like? And this is someone who knows how to take it that next step. Like, and it's like such a distinct, unique thing that, like, if I could, because I have my voices of my own that are like not like this, but like I could do something that you'd be like, oh, it's kind of this like cute little thing or this little other thing. Like, when he must have been doing this, he must have just, like, he knew, like you said, Dustin, he knew he had something, because it's so distinctive in a really like just cellularly off-putting way that it's like you said, it starts with the voice and then everything else built out around it is as equally off-putting as the voice that David Firth is just like is conjuring, evoking.
There is no respite.
No, of course not. I mean, that's the kind of content we're expecting here. Like, I want to just be bombarded with it, and I don't want there to be a logical jumping off point. Like, I want this to just keep going and going to the point where it's like excruciatingly off-putting.
Yeah, it's just to the next thing. The one weird, creepy thing happens, and then he sticks his salad finger through a rusty nail and bleeds out.
Yeah.
He likes when the red water comes out.
Yeah.
He gets
Just
to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow in his brain while he's bleeding out.
Yeah.
In his brain, which is a meat locker.
In his don't you have a meat locker in your brain?
Just
I
rubbing and stroking meat.
And then the nail as well, or the hook, I guess.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, so, you know what I wonder coming off of this episode, is there a town or place that kid has come from that will now be looking for him? Is like Salad Fingers like a known threat to people, or is he just again like an agent of chaos in a fucked up world? Because that's just kind of what it seems like. And Emma, you said that there's lore and mythology here.
Yes, especially as we get to the later episodes. I think a lot of the early episodes are meant to like introduce you to the character,
right? Set the tone for
the quirks of the character, if you will.
Oh, and there are clearly many.
You know, Salad Fingers is just quirky like that.
Well, and again, like, this kind of thing really benefits from like making this character as weird as possible, because the weirder he is, the zanier the scenarios he can be put into, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this before, at least to you, Chris. I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, but what I love about media like this is the creator had a very specific feeling that he wanted to evoke from an audience, and he evokes it consistently. He does it well. Whether or not you like it, whether or not you think it's entertaining, it is achieving exactly what it's set out to do. And I love media that is able to do that, because that's art. Art is setting an intention for a creative piece and seeing that intention through. And obviously people are going to interpret it in different ways. And I also think that that's art. But when you look at, you know, a piece of art in the museum and it makes you feel something, I think that means it's a successful piece. It could be a beautiful piece or an ugly piece, but if it makes you feel something, if it makes you think, that is a successful piece.
That was it. It achieved its intent.
It does it beautifully in the weirdest, worst way, and it only continues to ramp up. I love how they continue. David continues to find just like the right strings of words and visuals that just make you go, "Oh God." And I love it.
Well, and the other thing is they didn't return back to the rust thing. I mean, the rust thing it didn't come up.
No spoons, no rust.
So, like, again, like, you know, similarly to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, they're not just doing one thing over and over again. They've already done something different, added a layer to this character that wasn't there in the first episode. And again, like, it raises more questions than it answers. And I'm assuming that they don't ever answer everything, and maybe there isn't anything to answer by the end of this anyways. Unlike Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, which is asking questions every episode and answering very little. So, you know, knowing that there's lore and mythology and stuff surrounding this, like, I'm interested to see what that is, given what we saw, how it manifested in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. very organically and kind of, out of the periphery of your eye type thing, to the point where when you and I were watching some of the stuff, Emma, we were like going back and like scrubbing through the episodes to see those things that we had missed when we watched them the first time.
Right.
Right. Which is like a fun part of this as well. It makes it feel more like a shared experience. Outside of the fact that it's the three of us here watching it together, it still feels like there's more people engaging with it in a substantive way than maybe just some random video on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. And like I
Charlie
said,
the Unicorn, which is kind of
Right.
like doesn't ask anything of you. And it's just weird for weird's sake and doing nothing other than trying to be funny.
exactly. And you can tell, as I said, as we get into some of the later episodes, you can tell at least at a certain point, there is some sort of story that David is trying to tell. But I will say he never confirms. There are a lot of theories, and we'll go through those as we get a little further. But there's still some more things, some more ways that we're going to set the stage before we get into that. I think definitely episode 3, I think, covers a lot of it as well. Because, I mean, so far, if we had to distill Salad Fingers into everything we know about Salad Fingers, we know he likes rust. We know he likes spoons, specifically rusty spoons. He likes drawing his own blood for some reason. He maybe eats children. And he has finger puppet friends. I think that's like a decent amount of information. But we do get more. Do you want to click on episode number 3?
I do, but Dustin, is there anything you want to add before we continue our journey into Don't Hug Me?
Don't Hug Me, I was scared.
Something that popped out at me. I don't know if you're familiar with the books, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yeah.
Are we familiar with the books Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark? He asks the hosts of Scary Stories We Tell.
It was more for the audience, Chris. Can you not take it so personally?
Oh my gosh.
Triggered.
I'm not just talking to you. But
Thank you. That was the response I wanted.
If you can recall the illustrations from those books, this kind of reminds me of that. Very like bodily fluidy and inky and
hairy.
I would describe it as scratchy.
Yeah, scratchy is good.
Dustin, did you know that old McDougal is dead and his brother don't know it? Do you remember that from that book? Or the thing about the thumb?
The thumb, yes.
Yeah, like that, dude, those books made a lasting impression.
I had those books when I was like 8 or 9. For some reason.
We've never talked about it on this show. I don't think I said maybe at the first episode, but like that is where the name comes from, is that series. I mean, yeah, because that series of books, I mean, for me, like I checked those out from the library a ton growing up. I mean, I bought them at Half Price Books a couple years ago. We were like at Half Price Books and I was like, I wanted to get something. And I don't remember why I walked past this cart and I saw all 3 sitting there on the cart, and I just bought them. It was like $5 for all 3, and they're on my bookshelf.
Scholastic Book Fair.
Yeah, that's probably where I got them. That's got to be it. I mean, that fucking smacks different. Like, my God.
New series idea, dramatic reading, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
We'll get in trouble for that.
Will we?
Yeah, because that's like Scholastic. They'll show us how it truly feels to be taken down in an instant. I would.
We'll just do it with like a voice distortion, and they can't tell.
Like the voice of Salad Fingers.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, that sounds extra awful.
I'd call that pretty dramatic.
Yeah. Right. So, shall we? You guys want to watch the next episode?
Yeah, I think we can squeeze one more in.
So this is the 3rd episode of Salad Fingers, titled Nettles, and it has 15 million views.
Oh, I'm excited for this one, I gotta admit.
You know what's something I want to mention before we go any further? The fucking music is really bad in like a really good way.
Good way. Yeah.
Like
Agreed.
that, like the old like record player with the and you can hear the scratch. That is
whole
good.
Series can be described as scratchy.
If the lights were off in your house and that music was playing in a room.
In this house.
Oh, fuck that.
You don't go in that room.
This house. No, what is it? Come upstairs, Kaylee. Emma and I watched that movie together last week.
And then I showed my boyfriend. It was great.
In this house. Boy, promises made and apparently not kept for some people. What a fucking shame. But yeah, let's get back to this fucking nightmare, because this is way worse than Skinamarink in every way possible.
It evokes
The choice of words.
Yes, as I said, he strings together just the perfect words with the perfect visuals that make you go, "Oh God!"
Yeah,
He makes the
through
most,
every episode.
He makes the most of every single word.
Yes, I love how he says fatigued.
Yeah, you could just say tired.
Nah,
No, fatigue.
only big words for Salad Fingers. Salad Fingers is learned. I mean, you saw him going ham on that flute.
Oh yeah.
That's another thing we learned about Salad Fingers. He can play the flute,
And that he's fucking yoked.
and he's ripped.
God,
Anti-lactate. Or I should
I
say
have nipples, Greg. Can you?
anti-lactates.
I have
pretty
nipples,
good.
Greg. Can you milk me? That's what I thought of.
Can we clip that for the soundboard?
The soundboard. That was pretty good, Dustin. You have to
I'm impressed.
torment your family with your bespoke Salad Fingers impersonation.
Good morning, family.
Oh God. There is no end in sight with this fucking shit, is there? There's no end in sight with this.
You seem more delighted as we continue, though.
I'm enjoying it, but it is very much like an enjoyment in spite of what it is. Because this for me, like, okay, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of something else I could never get into. Invader Zim, like that, like art style.
That's fair.
Like,
I agree.
Humor for weirdness sake. Like, again, like it was never my thing. This kind. I have my own breed of bullshit that I like that makes very little sense. Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job, comes to mind, Dustin. I don't know if you've seen that ever.
Oh yeah.
It's very strange.
I've seen some clips.
Right. Like, is it your cup of tea, Emma?
I mean, I haven't sought it out, so I guess. I mean, if somebody like sat me down to watch it, I'd watch it.
Right.
I'm very wishy-washy on certain things. If somebody is like, I really want you to watch this, I really want to watch this with you, then I'm like here for it. But like otherwise, if I just won't seek it out on my own, which is honestly kind of how I am with music too, which you already know, Chris.
Right. But like it reminds me in a way it's like aggressive with how off-putting it is. Because like I think you would agree, Dustin, like Tim and Eric is very aggressively off-putting. Like a lot of it's just like sometimes it's just them making the same noise over and over again. Like not even exaggerating, like literal. Like the Totino's Pizza Boy ad comes to mind. It's like a perfect distillation of that. Which Emma, you're looking at me like you don't know what I'm talking about.
You can show it to me after.
Which is glorious because it's so insane, and it's like if you resonate with that, you might resonate with their overall oeuvre, as one might say. But like it's this same thing where like if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you're gonna be like, keep this as far away from me as possible. It's cursed. Like
you have to be in this knowing what you're getting and being okay with that, because like. I definitely feel like if you are not open-minded for the sake of enjoying this for what it is, you'll watch like 20 seconds and go, this is not for me, and you'll click away. You have to go into it knowing that this is weird shit. You're supposed to be weirded out. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be unsettling. You're supposed to almost hate it. And like Chris, like the same way, like when we were watching Skinamarink and like that trust. Like, it's supposed to be long. It's supposed to be drawn out. It's supposed to evoke those feelings. Like, as you said, like, if I wasn't geared up for that and I wasn't ready for that, then I was going to hate it.
Right. And we literally know people, Dustin and I know people that went into Skinamarink with an expectation that was not fulfilled, and like they didn't like it. And it's not really any fault of their own, because I think the movie's advertising campaign promised something that the movie was not. But that aside, like you said, like if you go into it with one expectation and it doesn't meet it, it's very hard to reconcile the two in a lot of ways. Like if it doesn't even satisfy the base expectation of what you have, you're probably not going to like it. Like,
you don't want a blanket statement. Mental audible.
Yeah. Like you've really got to be able to jump through that hoop a couple times if you're not into it. Like,
right. And real quick, just to backtrack on Skinamarink, if you want to get really pissed off, there's a reaction video that Jan, my boyfriend, had me like clicked through for me. Because he after he watched, he was like, I'm going to watch some reaction videos on this. I want to see what other people have to think about this. And so there's one of this like girl who must be around my age, who basically the whole video I think was like 20 minutes. And apparently she watched like the first like 15, 20 minutes of it and then skipped through till the end and then said she didn't like it. If you want to get pissed off, you should watch that reaction. Because I literally told him, like, I can't watch this. Her opinion is completely invalid. She did not
quote,
give it a chance.
Missing the quote most mainstream part of the movie to see the most completely bizarre parts too. Like, yeah, you're getting a completely different movie. Like, yeah.
Like, could you imagine having absolutely no patience that you're just like, click, click, click. Anyway, so yeah, it was terrible.
This is what
like, fuck you. Like, if you're gonna have an opinion, can you at least like experience it? Otherwise, just say like it wasn't for me. Like, that's fine. But no, she was like, it's a terrible movie.
This is what counts for YouTube analysis in this day and age.
Oh yeah, God. I think she had more views than like other people just because she's like a young girl with like her face in the thumbnail.
People that review like horror movies and then they're like, this movie's terrible. I hate horror movies.
Yes.
What are you doing? What are you doing watching it?
She was like, TikTok told me to watch it, and this was really bad. I was like,
well, I mean,
why are you here?
If TikTok, I mean the Chinese government, I mean TikTok is telling you to watch something, clearly these are the people. I mean, TikTok's not owned by the Chinese government or anything. We swear. Wink, wink, not.
Yeah, get yourself off the list.
Yeah,
it
right.
Totally wasn't popular in China when I was studying abroad in 2018. Before
Wink.
Basically anybody knew about it in America. But anyway,
Wink,
you know.
Wink. But yeah,
I was literally studying abroad in China when people started using TikTok. And let me tell you, nobody was using it back home yet. It was only saw like Chinese content. It started as Chinese content.
When I go to Barnes and Noble or places like, I think I was at Sam's Club, and I was at Sam's Club the other day. Fine establishment, the club that Sam built. It's his club.
Himself.
Yeah. We went there and they had a stand and it said Book Talk, and that were books you could buy that were Book Talk books, because Book Talk is a thing. Like,
yeah.
Book TOK, because apparently if you're in with the kids, they would say, you know, something talk. So Book Talk is where you
it's
books.
I don't know if you've heard the term like core, like cottage core.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing. It's distilling a hobby or an aesthetic down to like that core like term. And then there being a whole section on this app like dedicated to that. So Book Talk is basically all about like book reviews and book recommendations.
Great.
So Book Talk books are basically, I guess, trending books circulating on Book Talk. Can I use the term in the definition?
I follow.
I've never read a Book Talk book. I don't get my suggestions that way, I guess. So I don't know if it's any different than listening to a podcast. I mean, again, like, it depends on what style of medium you're looking for, because that's short form, folks. And this is not short form, but you can find our short form versions of this show on TikTok, where I post random clips from the episode. So,
hey, nice segue.
Trying to get in on it. So speaking of getting in on it, do we want to do one more on this one?
Yes.
Yes. Before we continue, I do want to ask, now that we've seen 3 episodes, I asked you after episode 1, where do you think this is going? I want to give you guys another chance to answer that question. Now that we know a little bit more about the world, know a little bit more about our beefed up protagonist who plays the mad flute.
He's not a bit of, he is a pervert. Like,
Dustin, just for clarification, he is pervert.
Yeah.
Well, in the first episode, he mentions that rubbing Rust is orgasmic. So
I don't want to yuck anybody's yum now. Okay. There's a lot of that going around, Lee.
Everybody's got a kink. I get it.
Yeah.
He really likes stinging nettles.
Oh, fuck.
Have you ever held a stinging nettle or grabbed or had one?
No, because it's stinging.
So I've been in my share of them. Hop yard growing is something I did too, and nettles were around, and it hurts. They suck. But something interesting, and I said this about like the rusty salad. So nettle leaf, like if you make nettle tea, What's it, and this is just weird information that I have. It actually is good for breastfeeding mothers because it helps them lactate. So it's interesting that's
That is
what he's
actually, that is a
into.
really interesting thing to point out. Like,
I mean, that's intentional,
again,
right?
yeah, like you have to be like, oh, I guess there was a point to this.
Well, and think about like who made it, where they're
Mhm.
from. That's probably a little more common.
Yeah.
The only reason I know about it is because we're a little, I mean, me and my wife and I are a little bit more, we look for natural things first before we look outside.
Homeopathic.
But yeah. And so, yeah, that popped in my brain. I was like, oh, yeah, that's supposed to happen, I guess.
There were
Usually you ingest it,
Yeah,
not
not
rub it
just-
directly on your teat.
But Salad Fingers is a different cat. So,
Really, he's just built different.
Well, that's the fucking
Built different.
that's the fucking poster line. Salad Fingers is a different cat. He's a
Salad
special
Fingers,
breed.
built different.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
That's
really,
the title of the episode. You better make that the
it
title.
was really off-putting to see him fucking jacked. I just want to point this out. Like it not helping here with any of this, making him like big.
Do you think he's
swole.
malnourished or do you think he lifts?
Oh, I think he gets mad gains. And I want to ask now, Emma, before we continue any further, and I need to know the answer if you've seen it. Is because we talked about it on Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared a little bit. There, you know where I'm going with this, right?
Do I?
Are there people that are into salad fingers?
I'm sure.
Oh god.
I'm sure somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, his fingers are long." Like, come on.
Oh god. I just didn't know if you knew because again, you knew about
not off
the clock boy from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
Hear me out. That I don't. I mean, I know why, but I don't know why.
Resident
Tumblr has
Deviant
such-
Emma Mantel. Resident Deviant. Oh god. I know, but I
Tumblr-
don't know. Okay.
Tumblr is Dustin. If you're unaware, have you ever heard the term Tumblr sexy man?
no.
So, are you aware of the platform Tumblr?
Yes.
So basically, fandom Tumblr, which is most of Tumblr, will appoint, like unanimously, they will appoint a character that they find attractive. And they happen to often have very similar qualities. A lot of them, like very lanky, thin limbs, and dapper, I think are often like perceived as dapper. I think are like, have you seen the Lorax movie, the new one? Well, that came out like, you know, the One Slur?
Yep.
Tumblr sexy man.
Okay.
The clock
like,
from
that's
Don't
the
Hug Me,
breed.
I'm Scared from that episode.
Gotcha.
So from the
that we
second
watched.
episode, the clock is a Tumblr sexy man. And I had to tell Chris that in the episode that we covered it because I think it's important information to move forward with.
I mean, look, if somebody is into salad fingers, you know, God bless.
Say it. Yeah, I was
God
like,
bless you.
finish that sentence.
Whatever. Don't want to yuck anybody's yum.
That's why they're watching this.
Yeah, boy. Fucking God damn it.
They're just so deprived of content.
It's like watching it. This is like watching Frankenfurter talk in Rocky Horror. Every word is very, very intentional. Like it's all so like, ugh. Bleh.
But to answer your question, something, roll 34.
Yeah. I wonder how many pictures we'd have to look at to find his fingers being dicks. Probably one. One or two.
I mean, do they need to be dicks is the question.
Almost penis. That's a thing on Reddit. Almost a penis. I mean,
You think he's on there?
I don't know. Maybe he's off-putting in every possible way. So, on that note, we'll bring this episode to a close. We'll watch the 4th episode of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Just kidding. The 4th episode
You did it again.
I know. The 4th episode of Salad Fingers, titled Cage. And it has 11 million views.
It's interesting watching the view count steadily go down as they're starting to like find their niche audience.
Right. We've refined it down. Dustin, as I sit here and gather my thoughts, what did you think of that?
So looking at these in a little bit deeper sense, Salad Fingers seems to want connection. Finger puppets, the little kid that he lures into the oven. And then when faced with someone or something that wants a connection with him, that's too much. I don't know,
God,
he's
hashtag all men. Am I right?
right.
Not all men,
He
but
wants to-
most of the time a man.
He wants to be in control. He didn't have control with little weird black-eyed baby.
That's the one thing that I wanted to point out is, was that meant to be a baby? Because it sounded like a baby. I think like the veininess also was very reminiscent of an infant, but it was proposing. And I think that
True.
is some cognitive dissonance for me.
I like that I don't like that redneck single as much as I like Cotton Eye Joe, Black Eyed Baby.
The scar.
No, Dustin's just gonna fucking no sell that one. Fine. Fine.
The big scar on the thing's head makes you wonder, maybe it's more just a damaged person that's more childlike.
Could be.
Might be thinking about it too much though.
It reminds me a lot of Eraserhead, David Lynch's movie. I mean, this is all very like David Lynch, like early weird body horror David Lynch stuff.
Yeah.
It's everything about it is very off-putting with that like little baby mutated head character. Like what's the cage of the episode, right? The cage is the what?
The cage is commitment. It's pretty heavy-handed. It's pretty heavy-handed in my opinion.
Well, and Salad Fingers just wants the pleasure.
Yeah.
He just wants to stroke Rust.
Boy, that's awful.
That's all he wants.
But it's true. That's what he does. I mean,
Doesn't want to be tied down.
You can't tie him down. He's built different.
Him jerking off those bars was an image I did not need to see, but yet here we are. So, as they would say, I mean, it's continuing that like off-putting imagery. Just they know how to make the most out of essentially nothing is what it feels.
Oh yeah.
Like this is created out of the air. I mean, in a lot of ways, like this is not referencing anything else. This is its own fucking weird thing. And it's just being weird for weird's sake. And in a lot of ways, I kind of miss this. I mean, I don't like this, but I miss this like energy where it was like, I'm just going to do weird shit. Like I miss that
for the
because
sake
it's kind of gone now. And everything is just so sanitized and samey and not as exciting as it used to be in a lot of ways. And not because, we've all gotten older, but because it just feels like some of these things just, not that people outgrew them, but people just didn't want things to continue to be weird. Like there needed to be some sense of normalcy. And like, I like weird. I think weird is fun and exciting like this is.
People wanted to stop straying from a formula. And I think that this does fully encompass the idea of just maybe there is a formula, but if it is not clear. Whereas a lot of creative content, people think that it needs to have, the opening, the peak, the conclusion, the lore, the story, and it needs to be like written out in a very specific way. And so a lot of media, it feels like nothing new is really happening because of those reasons. And this was a time where people didn't expect to get big online. This was a time before people really cared about going viral. This was just creating for creating's sake. And I think
creative outlet.
Exactly. Like I definitely think that with the rise of the internet, like this was like peak internet like years in terms of like mental health, which is hilarious because we're talking about Salad Fingers, which obviously makes you question the mental health of the creator. But I think like in terms, as somebody who grew up with the internet, the way that you create, it becomes affected by how it is received. And there was no pressure before that was normalized. Like, sure, like maybe you wanted like 100 upvotes, but like that would be enough. Right. There was no like that virality of like this needs to reach every corner of the globe. I need to be relevant. It was,
or it means nothing.
Or it means nothing, or I mean nothing, or what I create, what's the point?
Getting 5 million views on Newgrounds meant, what did that mean, right? Like versus 5 million views on YouTube. Like what do those two things mean? Because again, this got started on Newgrounds. So like it was even like you said, it was started at a time where like could you make a living posting things on Newgrounds? I don't think that was a thing.
No.
Like you said, it was a kind of an anonymous, faceless void of people who some people similarly to I would compare this to, and I'm not comparing him to this, but again, similarly, something like Logan and Jake Paul on Vine, escaping the orbit of Vine and making it into YouTube and becoming YouTubers. Because again, Vine disappeared. Newgrounds didn't disappear, but Newgrounds isn't where you would go to make a living. You can make a living on YouTube. There are plenty of people that do it. And that number is going to continue to get bigger and bigger because there are more people existing with interesting stories to tell or content to create that haven't been born yet or aren't old enough yet to pick up a phone or a computer and do it. And there will be more people being content creators because there will be less people needing to make things and more people being entertaining is needed for less people working. And so there you go. You have more entertainment needs for more people. And that's what happens with YouTube. And that's why this is on YouTube. And that's why anything new for this is going to get posted either on his own side, I'm assuming, or YouTube, because where else, right?
Right. I hope that we are able to cyclically come back to this idea of creating for creation's sake, putting it online only so it finds maybe a small audience that gives a shit. And that's enough. I miss those days, honestly. I miss the days where it was just, I'm going to make something weird or something fun or something that speaks to me. And it's not about how well received this is going to be, how big of an audience can I reach, what's the outreach here, how do I make this palatable for the widest audience, just creating what you want to create for the sake of putting it out there, and that's enough. And this is that, absolutely. And that's honestly why I think it is as iconic as it is. It really is reminiscent of that peak time of content creation. It's so purely self-serving.
It definitely feels that way watching it because it's definitely not tied to any master other than David Firth, because these kinds of decisions aren't made accidentally. Like you mentioned with the nettle thing in the last episode, Dustin, you have to know that to make that joke.
Right.
On that note, what do you guys think of Salad Fingers?
Interesting as fuck.
I mean, I think it obviously exists in such a strange corner of the universe that, again, I want these kinds of things to exist again in the future, because these things don't exist anymore like this. This still exists, but this is a hanging part of a pop culture time that doesn't exist anymore. Right. I want the new thing of this.
And when people do make it, such as Skinamarink as an example, look at it for what it is, like we've said, and give it some respect, because it is something that was created, and it's not necessarily always going to be your cup of tea, but it's that person's cup of tea, and check it out.
Oh yeah.
I stand as someone who is not the biggest fan of this, but I'm wanting to see where this goes. Because that's
why I wanted to show you.
Right.
I didn't expect you to fall in love with the characters like you did with Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, because this isn't meant to do that. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is meant to draw you in. You are meant to have, that pseudo relationship with the characters, which one is your favorite and all of that. It is very much that purpose because of how it's set up, especially as a kid's show. It's very nostalgic in a lot of ways too, and it's meant to be appealing in its own weird creepy way, but it's meant to be somewhat appealing. This is not meant to be appealing. Not in any way, shape, or form.
No,
unless if you are just absolutely into whatever this is. But it is internet history, and it is creepy as fuck, and I thoroughly enjoyed seeing your reaction.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to watch it together and experience, again, something that I've heard about. Like you said, Dustin, I had heard about it in passing, and now I kind of get a better sense of what this is. Maybe we don't know exactly where this is going, but it's a very interesting starting place. It's a very unique starting place, and it's not a starting place that anything else I've ever seen has started from. So the novelty is that unique. That's a novelty in and of itself. So
I would say, if it were to remind me of anything, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah, the teeth.
The teeth for sure. The wasteland. the weird stylization, the overall tones of just weird and dread and not knowing why anything is actually happening, a little bit more palatable because there are moments of respite and characters that you can trust to not be fucking weird. Unlike this, where there is no trust to be had.
No.
Not a single character here is comforting.
Best I can tell, we haven't met a single character that I would say is remotely welcoming. Everything has been very awful.
So who's your Salad Fingers comfort character?
Don't have one and there isn't one. God.
Hubert Cumberdale.
Whatever his name. Benedict Cumberbatch, whatever his name.
Yeah.
God. Yeah. So Dustin, as the one who was more or less shanghaied into this, I want to give you the final word on Salad Fingers to close out this first SurrealTube with a full couch of people, as it were.
Well, you said it was first posted 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have thought about it the same way then as watching it now. Because I would have known nothing about nettle leaves helping your lactation. So
very important information
to
appreciate this media.
Definitely coming at it from a different perspective. But I don't know, it's uncomfortable to watch, but at the same time, you can't look away from it. And it's that train wreck thing. It's weird. And I see there's more episodes and I kind of want to check them out.
Are you going to join us?
You going to join us or you going to jump ahead?
Oh, is there a part 2 to this?
Oh, we are definitely going. We're going to
all
the whole series.
Baby. What do you think? This is a one and done?
God, no.
What is this?
I'm making
amateur hour at the Apollo?
Chris is strapped in by force.
I can't leave. They won't let me leave.
I want to make a Halloween costume.
Oh, Jesus. Can you imagine seeing this coming up to you in the
trick or treat?
God.
Knocking on the door with your salad fingers.
Moving, yeah.
Rubbing the rusty spoon.
Oh, God.
That's one way to get kicked out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, right. There's this guy who dresses like this green monster.
He keeps talking about rust and spoons.
It's like Slender Man 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, he evokes Slender Man, I think.
Mm-hmm. He has Slender Man energy. I mean, he kills kids or at least eats them.
Yeah.
Hey, it was never on screen that he ate that kid. I'm fair. Just saying.
That's fair.
Just cooked
allegedly.
Him. Just cooked him.
The implication, as they would say.
It's like cooking chocolate chip cookies. It just makes the house smell nice.
Exactly.
Wow.
Aromatic.
Well, the fish is done. Like,
I'm loving these impressions.
They're coming from a place of abject horror, I feel like. It's not like bird from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Duck from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, where it's Skibby. I had to get it in there just for everybody. Just never forget that that's the best part.
I feel like every episode of SurrealTube, you have to say Pesky Bee at least once.
I gotta find a way to bring it. I gotta bring the duck energy, that dickhead little green duck energy with the baguettes for mouths. That's what they look like. They look like rolls. I never said that on any of the episodes.
No,
but I
you
kept
didn't.
thinking it looked like rolls.
Just like two Portuguese rolls.
Yeah, just like that's what it looked like. So until the next time the three of us talk about salad figures, you can find us over at weirdingwaymedia.com, where, like we mentioned, Dustin and I do some stuff from time to time. Emma is here most of the time. That's where you can find us. And that's a good place to go. As for this show, scarystorieswetell.com. Big thanks to you, Dustin, for the album artwork for the Campfire Stories. Ha-ha. Get to thank you in person. Jesus, what's that like? And you know what? I didn't ask for like 15,000 changes and then abuse you either. Isn't that weird?
I appreciate it.
Right. And big thanks to Maggie Diod as well for the main album artwork for the show. As for the music, Alex Malnack of Blondo provides that music. And if you're listening, Alex, hello, we'd like to have you back at some point. But hey, we know you're busy touring the Midwest and kicking ass. Because Dustin and I know you. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. And as always, we'll let our good friend, the former host of Sightings, Mr. Tim White, lead us out.
No mystery is closed to an open mind.